Once upon a time, on the edge of a vast and ancient forest, there lived a poor woodcutter with his wife and his 2 children. The boy was named Hansel, and the girl was named Gretel. Their cottage was small, built of rough timber and thatched with moss, sitting in the shadow of the great towering trees. It was a quiet place. The only sounds were the wind whispering through the high branches of the pines and the rhythmic thwack-thwack of the woodcutter. Axe echoing in the distance. Life was simple, and for a long time, it was peaceful. But a time came when a great famine settled over the land. The fields turned brown, the rivers ran low, and there was not enough bread to go around. The nights in the cottage grew silent and heavy. The fire in the hearth burned low, casting long, dancing shadows against the walls. Hansel and Gretel lay on their straw pallets in the corner, listening to the murmurs of their parents in the next room. They spoke of the empty larder, of the coming winter, and of a difficult choice. The stepmother, her voice sharp with worry, suggested they take the children deep into the woods, deeper than they had ever gone before. "Leave them there. The forest will take care of them," she whispered. "We cannot feed 4 mouths." The woodcutter's heart was heavy, for he loved his children dearly. But the weight of hunger is a powerful thing, and eventually, with a deep sigh, he agreed. Hansel, who had not yet fallen asleep, heard everything. The moonlight was streaming through the small window, painting the floor in pale silver. He felt a knot of fear in his chest, but he was a brave boy, and he loved his sister. He waited until the breathing of the adults turned into the slow rhythm of sleep. Then he rose quietly from his bed. He put on his little jacket and unbarred the back door. The hinges groaned softly, but the sound was lost in the rustling of the leaves outside. He stepped out into the night. The moon was full and bright, hanging like a lantern in the velvet sky. Its light fell upon the ground in front of the cottage, where hundreds of small white flint stones lay scattered. In the daylight, they were just gray rocks, but under the full moon, they shone like pure silver coins. They glowed with a ghostly, protective light. Hansel smiled. An idea formed in his mind. He knelt down and began to fill the pockets of his jacket with the white pebbles. He stuffed them in until his pockets were bulging and heavy, clinking softly together. Then he crept back into the house, barred the door, and whispered to Gretel, "Do not worry, little sister. Sleep in peace. The moon is watching over us." The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, the stepmother woke the children. "Get up, you lazy bones," she said, though her voice lacked its usual sting. "We are going into the forest to fetch wood. Here is a piece of bread for each of you. Do not eat it yet, for you will get nothing else all day." Gretel took the bread and hid it in her apron, for Hansel's pockets were full of stones. They set out together, the woodcutter leading the way, the stepmother following, and the children trailing behind. The forest was a cathedral of green and brown. The trees were so old that their trunks were as wide as houses, and their branches wove together overhead to block out the sky. It was cool and damp, smelling of pine needles, wet earth, and mushrooms. As they walked, Hansel lagged behind. Every few steps, he would stop and look back at the house. "Why are you looking back, Hansel?" his father asked. "Take care, or your legs will forget how to walk." "I am looking at my white kitten," Hansel lied. "It is sitting on the roof, wanting to say goodbye to me." "You fool," the stepmother snapped. That is not your kitten. That is the morning sun shining on the chimney. But Hansel was not looking at a kitten. Each time he stopped, he took a white pebble from his pocket and dropped it onto the path. One by one, step by step, he was laying a trail, a silver map that would lead them home. They walked deeper into the woods than they had ever been. Past the familiar oaks, past the stream where the deer drank, into the heart of the wilderness where the shadows were long and the silence was deep. Finally, they stopped in a clearing surrounded by thick bushes. "Sit here, children," the stepmother said. "Gather some wood, and I will make a fire so you do not freeze. We are going to chop wood further in. When we are done, we will come back and fetch you." Hansel and Gretel gathered brushwood and built a pile. The woodcutter lit it, and soon the flames were leaping high, crackling and popping, sending warm orange light against the dark trees. The children sat by the fire, eating their bread slowly, making every crumb last. They could hear the strokes of an axe in the distance, and they believed their father was nearby. But it was not an axe. It was a branch the woodcutter had tied to a dead tree, bumping against the trunk in the wind. Thump, thump, thump. The sound was rhythmic and hypnotic. The fire crackled warmly, and the steady thud of the axe, or so they thought, echoed through the trees. Lulled by the sounds and the heat, Hansel and Gretel's eyes grew heavy. They had walked so far and were exhausted. Leaning against each other, they drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the whispering leaves of the forest. When they woke, the world was pitch black. The fire was just a pile of glowing embers, and the towering trees looked like menacing giants. Gretel started to cry, her voice trembling in the dark. "How will we ever get out of the forest now?" she whispered, but Hansel was there to comfort her. "Just wait a little," he sighed softly. "Wait until the moon rises," and soon enough, a full, bright moon climbed above the trees, bathing the forest in its light. Suddenly, the ground sparkled. The white pebbles Hansel had dropped earlier shone like a trail of silver coins, a glowing path leading through the darkness. "Come," Hansel said, taking his sister's hand. They followed the shimmering stones all through the night. The forest no longer felt scary. It was beautiful under the moonlight. Owls hooted softly, and the wind sighed through the treetops. As dawn broke, they saw it their little cottage. They knocked, and when the door opened, their father was overjoyed. He hadn't known a moment's peace since leaving them behind. They were home, safe and sound. At least for now. Thanks for watching our story. If you enjoyed it, please like this video and subscribe for more classic tales. Not long after, the shadow of hunger fell upon the land once more. It was heavier this time, a silence that stretched across the fields and seeped into the very walls of the little cottage. The larder was bare, save for half a loaf of stale bread. The children, lying awake in their beds, heard the stepmother speaking to the father again. Her voice was not angry, but desperate and cold like the winter wind. "Everything is eaten again," she said. "We have half a loaf left, and after that, the song is ended. We must take the children away again. This time, we will take them deeper, so deep into the wood that they will never find the way out. There is no other salvation for us." The woodcutter's heart felt heavy as a stone in his chest. He remembered the joy of seeing his children return, but he was a man worn down by sorrow and starvation. He tried to argue, but his voice was weak. And when one yields once, it is easier to yield a second time. So, with a heavy sigh that shook the timbers of the house, he agreed. The children were still awake. Hansel, hearing the plan, got up quietly to collect his white pebbles again. He crept to the door, his hand reaching for the latch, but when he pushed, the wood did not move. The door was barred from the outside. The stepmother had locked it. Hansel stood there in the dark, his forehead resting against the rough wood. He could see the moonlight shining through the cracks, mocking him. He could see the white pebbles glowing in the yard, just out of reach. He went back to his bed with a heavy heart, but he whispered to Gretel, "Do not weep. Sleep in peace. The forest is vast, but we will find a way." Early the next morning, the children were pulled from their beds. The sun was hidden behind gray clouds, and the air was thick with mist. They were given their piece of bread, even smaller than before. As they walked along the path, Hansel crumbled his bread in his pocket. Every few steps, he lingered behind, crushing the dry crust into tiny morsels and dropping one onto the ground. "Hansel, why do you stop and look back?" the father asked, his voice full of sadness. "I am looking at my little pigeon," Hansel said softly. "It is sitting on the roof and wants to say goodbye to me." "Fool," said the stepmother. "That is not your pigeon. That is the morning sun shining on the chimney." But Hansel was dropping breadcrumbs, tiny, fragile markers of their path. He dropped them on the moss. He dropped them on the roots. He dropped them on the dark earth, a trail of sustenance leading back to safety. They walked further than they had ever walked before. They walked until the trees changed shape, becoming twisted and gnarled, covered in hanging lichens that looked like old men's beards. The forest here was silent. No wind stirred the branches. No squirrels chattered. It was a place of deep, ancient slumber. Finally, they stopped. "Stay here," said the stepmother. "We will go and chop wood." They built a fire again, but this time it felt smaller against the encroaching dark. The parents walked away, their footsteps swallowed by the moss. Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire. They shared Gretel's piece of bread, for Hansel had scattered all of his. They listened for the sound of the axe, but the forest was silent. Eventually, weariness overcame them. Their heads nodded, their eyes closed, and they drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep. When they woke, it was dark. The fire was dead. The cold air bit at their cheeks. Hansel Gretel whispered, "I am afraid." "Wait," Hansel said, holding her hand tight. "Wait for the moon. Then we will see the breadcrumbs, and they will show us the way home." The moon rose climbing above the twisted canopy. It cast its pale light onto the forest floor. Hansel looked for the crumbs. He looked on the path. He looked on the moss, but there were no crumbs. Not a single one. The thousands of birds of the forest, the crows, the sparrows, the finches had flown down while the children slept. They had seen the feast laid out on the path and had picked it clean. The way home was gone. It had been eaten. Hansel and Gretel tried to walk, hoping to find a familiar tree or a landmark. But every step only took them deeper into the unknown. They walked all that night and all the next day. The forest seemed to expand, growing larger and wilder around them. They found a few berries to eat, but mostly they were fed by their own fear and hope. On the third day, around noon, something changed. The heavy silence of the woods was broken by a beautiful sound. It was a bird, snow white and glowing in a shaft of sunlight. It sat on a bough and sang a song so sweet, so mournful, and so beckoning that the children stopped to listen. When its song was finished, it spread its wings and flew slowly in front of them, looking back as if to say, "Follow me." They followed the white bird. It led them through a thicket of thorns that parted easily for them. It led them into a clearing where the sun shone bright and warm. And there, in the middle of the clearing, stood a house. But this was no ordinary house. As they drew closer, the sweet smell of vanilla and ginger filled the air. They stopped their eyes, widening in disbelief. The walls of the house were built of golden gingerbread, baked to perfection. The roof was tiled with cakes and biscuits, layered like shingles. The windows were made of clear, spun sugar that glinted in the light. It was a house made of hunger's relief. It was a house made of dreams. Hansel reached up and broke off a piece of the roof. "It tastes like honey," he whispered, amazed. Gretel gnawed on a piece of the window pane. It was sweet and crunchy like hard candy. They ate with the desperation of the starving, forgetting where they were, forgetting the strange white bird that sat on the roof watching them. Suddenly, the door of the sweet house opened with a soft creak. An old woman stepped out. She leaned on a crutch, and her head shook slightly. She looked very old and very frail, but her voice, when she spoke, was like the crackle of dry leaves. "Oh, you dear children," she said, squinting at them. "Who has brought you here? Do come in and stay with me. No harm shall happen to you." She took them both by the hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. She led them into the little house. Inside, it smelled of milk and pancakes with sugar and apples and nuts. 2 little beds were prepared with white sheets. Hansel and Gretel lay down in them. It felt as if they were in heaven. They closed their eyes, thinking they had been saved, but they did not know that the house was not a shelter. It was a trap. The morning sun did not shine brightly into the little house of sugar. It filtered through the spoon sugar windows in soft, milky rays, casting a hazy light over the room. Hansel and Gretel woke up feeling warm and rested, believing they had found a sanctuary. But the old woman who had pretended to be so kind was not kind at all. She was a wicked witch who lay in wait for children, and she had built the little house of bread only to lure them in. When she looked at them sleeping, her red eyes, which were dim and could not see far, gleamed with a hungry light. She had a keen sense of smell, like a beast of the forest, and she had smelled them coming long before they arrived. Before the children had even fully opened their eyes, she seized Hansel with her withered hand. Her grip was like iron. She carried him into a small stable behind the house, a place with a barred door and a lattice of iron. She shut him in. He cried out, but it was no use. The walls were thick, and the forest outside swallowed the sound. Then she went to Gretel and shook her awake. "Get up, lazy thing," she croaked. "Fetch water and cook something good for your brother. He is out in the stable and must be fattened. When he's fat, I will eat him." Gretel began to weep bitter tears. but they were in vain. She was forced to do what the wicked woman demanded, and so a strange and terrible routine began in the heart of the woods. Every day, the finest food was cooked for Hansel. The smell of roasting meats, rich gravies, and sweet cakes filled the air. Drifting through the bars of his little prison, he was fed the best of everything, while Gretel received nothing but crab shells and scraps. The witch wanted him plump and tender. Each morning, the old woman would creep out to the stable. Her steps were slow and shuffling, scratch, 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 scratch against the floor. She would stop by the bars and call out in her cracked voice, "Hansel, stretch out your finger that I may feel if you will soon be fat." But Hansel was clever. He had found a small bone in his food, a little chicken bone, thin and hard, and every morning, when the witch asked for his finger, he would poke the bone out through the bars instead. The old woman had dim eyes and could not see well. She felt the bone and thought it was Hansel's finger. She wondered why the boy did not grow fatter. She muttered to herself, shaking her head, "Still so thin, still so thin, dry as a twig." Days turned into weeks. The moon waxed and waned above the gingerbread house. The forest around them remained silent and indifferent. Inside, Gretel worked and wept, her tears falling into the water jugs she carried. She looked at her brother in the cage, and he looked back, holding up the little bone as a sign of hope. It was their secret, a tiny rebellion against the dark. The witch grew impatient. She fed him more cream and butter, white bread and honey, but the finger remained as thin as ever. 4 weeks passed. The witch's patience snapped like a dry branch in winter. One morning, she stood by the cage and felt the bone again. "It is enough," she called out to Gretel. "Be he fat or be he lean, tomorrow I will kill him and cook him. Fetch water, girl. Fill the great iron pot. We will bake bread first, but the cauldron must be ready." Gretel's heart sank. She went to the well to fetch the water, her tears dropping into the bucket, creating tiny ripples that disturbed the reflection of the gray sky. "God help us," she whispered to the wind. "If only the wild beasts in the forest had eaten us, we should at least have died together." "Save your noise," the old woman snapped from the doorway. "It will not help you." The night fell heavy and dark. The oven was lit. The fire roared inside it, casting a terrifying orange glow across the kitchen. The heat grew intense, baking the air, making it thick and hard to breathe. The witch sat in her chair, sharpening a knife on a whetstone. Ish, 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 H, 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 H. The sound was rhythmic, like the ticking of a clock. Counting down the final hours, Gretel lay in her bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling of cake and icing. She thought of the white bird that had led them here. She thought of the white pebbles that had once saved them. She closed her eyes and prayed for one last chance, one moment of cleverness, one moment of strength. The witch slept lightly, muttering in her dreams of feasts and fires. Outside, the wind picked up, howling around the corners of the sweet house, rattling the sugar windows. It was a storm coming, a change in the air. Tomorrow, the oven would be hot. Tomorrow, The fate of the children would be decided. The morning arrived with a sky the color of bruised iron. The air inside the gingerbread house was stiflingly hot. The great brick oven had been burning all night, and now the flames were fierce, licking the stone sides, waiting. The old witch crawled out of her bed earlier than usual. She pushed Gretel out towards the oven. "Creep in," said the witch, her voice a low hiss. "See if it is properly heated, so that we can shut the bread in." But Gretel saw what was in the witch's mind. She knew that once she was inside, the witch would shut the iron door, and she would be roasted just like the bread. A moment of clarity washed over Gretel. It was cold and sharp, cutting through her fear. She stood very still. "I do not know how to do it," Gretel said, her voice sounding surprisingly steady. "How do I get in?" "Stupid goose," said the old woman. "The door is big enough. Just look, I can get in myself." And she scrambled up and thrust her head into the oven opening to demonstrate. This was the moment, the only moment. Gretel gathered every ounce of strength in her small body. She stepped forward and gave the witch a hard, desperate shove. The old woman slid all the way in with a surprised shriek. Gretel slammed the iron door shut and bolted it fast. From inside came a terrible howling. But Gretel did not stay to listen. She ran away as fast as her legs would carry her, leaving the wicked witch to her fate in the fire she had built for others. The house of sugar stood silent now. The trap was broken. Gretel ran straight to the stable. She opened the door with trembling hands. "Hansel, we are saved!" she cried. "The old witch is dead." Hansel sprang out like a bird from a cage when the door is opened. They fell into each other's arms, weeping tears of joy, kissing each other's cheeks. They were thin and pale, but they were free. They went back into the witch's house one last time, not to eat, but to look. In every corner stood chests full of pearls and precious stones. "These are better than Pebbles," said Hansel. He filled his pockets until they could hold no more. Gretel filled her apron. "Now we must go," Hansel said. "We must get out of the witch's forest." They walked away from the gingerbread house without looking back. They walked into the deep green woods. For a few hours, they walked with the energy of escape. But as the day wore on, the adrenaline faded, and the forest began to grow more familiar. The twisted trees straightened out. The dark moss gave way to lighter grass. Eventually, they came to a wide body of water. It was not a small stream, but a great wide river flowing silently towards the sea. There was no bridge and no boat. "We cannot get over," said Hansel. "I see no foot plank, and no boat swims here," answered Gretel. "But look, there swims a white duck. If I ask her, she will help us over." She called out across the water, "Little duck, little duck, dost thou see? Hansel and Gretel are waiting for thee. There's never a plank nor a bridge in sight. Take us across on thy back so white." The duck came to them. It was a creature of pure calm, floating effortlessly on the current. Hansel seated himself on its back and told his sister to sit by him. "No," replied Gretel, "that will be too heavy for the little duck. She shall take us across, one after the other." The good little duck did so. It carried Hansel across the cool, glassy water, setting him gently on the green bank. Then it returned for Gretel. The journey across the water was a moment of perfect peace. Suspended between the danger behind them and the home ahead of them, they felt the gentle rocking of the bird, the cool spray of the river, the silence of the reeds. It washed the last of the fear from their hearts. When they were safely on the other side, the forests became even more familiar. They recognized a certain oak tree. They recognized a path where they used to pick berries. And then, through the trees, they saw it. The little cottage. They began to run. Not from fear, but from love. They rushed into the parlor and threw themselves into their father's arms. The man wept as he held them. He had not known one happy hour since he had left his children in the wood. The stepmother, he told them, had died while they were gone. The darkness had lifted from the house. It was just the three of them now. Gretel emptied her apron, and suddenly pearls and precious stones rolled across the room, bouncing on the floorboards like glittering rain. Hansel joined in, throwing handful after handful from his pockets. They weren't just rich with jewels, they were rich with life, with safety, and with the knowledge that they had survived the darkness. Their father built a fire in the Good fire, a safe fire. They sat before it, watching the flames dance, feeling the warmth chase away the cold memories. The constant worry about the famine was gone. The terror of the witch was just a distant, fading story. The house was warm. Their cupboards would be full forever. And so, the story ends not with a shout, but with a quiet whisper. That night, the children lay in their own beds. The simple straw felt as soft as silk, their pillows like clouds. They listened to the wind outside, but they were no longer afraid of the forest, because they had conquered it. They closed their eyes, knowing that when they woke, they would still be home. Their breathing slowed. The fire crackled softly. The moon shone through the window, no longer a guide to light their path, but simply there to watch over them. All is well. All is safe. All is quiet. Sleep now. The long journey is finally over. Thanks for watching. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your night. May you find deep peace and restful sleep. Wishing you the sweetest dreams. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.